Over the years, marketers have been analyzing the different generations, baby boomers, Gen X, millennials, and recently we have seen there's a red thread among all of them: speed. They all want everything to happen now. My name is Francisco Serrano, and I am the Chief Speed Officer at One to One and the host of the Now Gen podcast. Join me. Each episode, we talk about what's happening with brands, see how brand professionals across different industries cope with this fast-changing market, and live up to the expectation of this now generation. Welcome.
This episode is brought to you by One to One, the fastest day-to-day design and content studio. For more than 17 years, One to One has been their premier partner for many Fortune 500 companies, proving that tight deadlines shouldn't be a hassle.
Okay, so welcome to the Now Gen podcast. Today, we will talk about the importance of having a well-planned marketing strategy for your brand and how it reassembles to the idea of driving a car. Yeah, it's fun. So fasten your seatbelts. This episode will be a blast. I have a very special guest today. Let's welcome Kevin Shapiro. He's the Senior Vice President of U.S. Marketing Consumer Beauty at Coty. Kevin is a driver of change, and his disruptive, energetic brand management has been able to grow a lot of brands in most categories out there in the beauty, luxury, and lifestyle. So I'm very happy to have you, Kevin. How are you? Or should I say, ¿cómo estás?
Ando muy bien, gracias, Francisco. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Next time we're doing this.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us about the now generation.
Of course. Next time we meet, let's do it in Spanish.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you're kidding, but sometimes, a lot of the audience asks me if we have some kind of right now we only have it in English, right? But sometimes they ask us because of the company it's influencing in Latin America, they ask us to do it in Spanish. So yeah, it's not far that from here. And I know that you are fluently well-spoken in Spanish, right?
I am. I grew up in Mexico, so I have the fortune of having learned Spanish when I was very young. So, si quieres, la próxima vez lo grabamos en español para
Excellent.
Toda la gente que escucha el podcast de Latinoamérica. So, next time.
Perfecto. Muchas gracias, Kevin. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. But we have a lot to talk about, I know, in this episode. But first, I would like to, if you can introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, your quick bio, and how did you hear about this now gen and how it's influencing your industry?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you for having me. I've been in the beauty industry for, over 10 years now, which is, almost going on 15 years. So it feels like a long time. And I've been at a number of companies. I started the foundation of my career in beauty at Procter & Gamble, and I've been at some of the smaller players and also some of the larger players. And I've been now with Coty for 3 years. And so I've worked on different parts of the business as the company has grown and evolved. I started originally with the hair color business, and now I lead our US marketing for our consumer beauty portfolio here in the US, which is mainly cosmetics and fragrances, but we also have some hair removal and self-tanning business in there as well under Sally Hansen. And it's exciting, someone asked me the other day, what would I be doing if I weren't in beauty? And I told them that question was off limits because I can't imagine. So I absolutely love beauty through and through. And I've had the challenge and the pleasure of working in pretty much every beauty category at this point in my career.
It's a very difficult category, right? So because it's just such it's a demanding industry, right?
Well, it's certainly fast-paced. And I think that one thing I would say, having worked in kind of all facets of beauty at this point, from everything from hair care to fragrances to cosmetics, is that within the category, you have all of the categories that make up beauty overall have very different dynamics. When you kind of break it down, you have different companies that tend to dominate different amounts and types of disruption by category. And it's one where it is true that even in the industry, every time you turn around, there's a new brand, right? There's a new brand that's coming up that's vying for the attention and the dollars of consumers.
Oh, great. And I see that besides your time spending in developing all these big strategies on how to beat the market, you are also a fan of driving cars, right? So can you tell us a little bit about your idea and your concept of managing brands and marketing and racing cars, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a self-confessed car guy. I did work at Edmunds.com, the car site, before I worked in the beauty industry. So that was a chance to kind of live out another passion of mine. And I recently had the opportunity to spend a day at the track at Skip Barber while I was in Austin for South by Southwest. And as we were learning some of the basics, I was thinking about them afterwards, and I really felt like there's a lot of parallels here to kind of driving a car, racing a car, and really how things need to work in business. And we joke sometimes that we're building the car as we drive it here at Coty because it's a dynamic industry. But I think in all seriousness, I did actually jot down 10 things that I wanted to talk through that I think are critical for successful racing and successful driving. And it's very similar to things that I consider when we're running the business here.
Yes, please go ahead. Tell us a little bit about. I already seen some of the work you've done, but explain to us a little bit the structure of how you're comparing it to.
Yeah, I mean, first, one of the first lessons they taught us at Skip Barber is that you always need to look ahead, and not just look ahead in front of you, but look ahead to the horizon. When you look out to the horizon, you automatically are going to see not just the horizon, but from the horizon all the way closer naturally towards the vehicle or towards your current day. And so for us, for example, when the pandemic happened and we saw consumer habits starting to change, we pivoted very quickly in terms of becoming closer to where consumers were. And in that case, we saw a dramatic growth of 10 years penetration in e-commerce and decisions being made with their phone, right? So we are in mass beauty. Most decisions used to be made at shelf, maybe some research on their phone, and we had to really push further. And so what we did is, for example, on Sally Hansen, which is our nail business, the number one nail color and nail care brand in the US, we actually launched a try-on lens with Snapchat in partnership with a third-party developer so that consumers could try on all of our new shades from Miracle Gel. Obviously, they weren't leaving their home. This was really in the kind of the early height of the pandemic. And what's really exciting is we actually received an Effie award in commerce and shopper media innovation for that try-on lens. So it was right built into where consumers already were at that point where they were, making a decision. And then of course it had a click through to purchase through a number of our retail partners. So it was something that, we have had different elements of try-on in the past, but it was something that we just saw as an immediate barrier that came as a result of the pandemic and something that we could solve for.
And what trying to reassemble it to the strategy of driving a car, you look at the horizon and you see that the pandemic is there, that is not going anywhere, and that you need to drive growth against that challenge. And what you did is you went into and you translated that into an opportunity.
Absolutely. It's looking further ahead and seeing that maybe there could be something, an obstacle, let's say, on the course, but knowing where it's on the horizon, knowing where you want to go helps you navigate maybe a slightly different course in order to still get there safely and get there in a way that you had maybe envisioned differently, but understanding the end goal and getting there maybe in a little bit different path.
Yeah, and I see now. So when I've never driven a sports car, like a big sports car, right? But yeah, fast cars, and then you get into the car, and as you're driving, you just get in the road, and that's it. You don't don't look at the horizon. So, and in marketing is the same thing. So yeah, and after that, what do you do? So you're in the car, you look at the horizon, then what do you do?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do. Again, I just kind of picked the 10 things that I think were most important and most impactful if I think about what I keep in mind. And the second one is, you probably saw me, I just adjusted myself now, which is to sit correctly in the seat. So the business that you design, or in the case of cars, the way the seat is designed is meant to protect you. You know, you have side bolsters, we've built a business model that has kind of the main course that we intend to go, but also has safeguards, whether it's versus competitive pressure or other things to keep us on track. But it's important to leverage them. So, you know, for us, it's, you know, I think about this as mitigating risk. So you're always going to have the potential for an unexpected maneuver. And it could be a lot of different things. But for us, you know, for example, on CoverGirl, one of the things that we always promise to our consumers that we're a brand that's easy and breezy and beautiful. And so it means for us that we're delivering a promise to consumer that is straightforward. And are we really making sure that we're providing the reassurance to the consumer that we're not going to deliver a complicated regimen, or one that you have to spend like a 30-minute tutorial on YouTube to understand how to use our products? Because then it wouldn't be true to the brand. It would be not leveraging what we're promising to the consumer. And it wouldn't be sort of sitting in a CoverGirl seat if we were to be proposing products or regimens that were hard to understand, that had vocabulary that would alienate our consumers, because that's really what we uniquely bring to the market. You know, it's very easy with a business that has over 1,000 SKUs to become complicated. The difficult part is to say, how do we categorize, how do we provide education around those 1,000 SKUs that makes sense and can still deliver being easy, breezy, and beautiful for the consumer?
Yes, every time I go into the supermarket or convenience store, I always go through every aisle just to see what's out there. And when I get to your category, is just I mean, where do you start? There's a lot of options. You need to really understand how to navigate that. So that promise, I mean, it has proven to work, right? I mean, can you explain a little bit to the audience what's CoverGirl and what's the brand importance in the market as far as recognition? I heard that it has more recognition than even it's at the top right there with Apple and McDonald's, right?
Absolutely. Obviously, you have a global audience, but CoverGirl is primarily a US and Canada brand. And in our market here in the US, as an American brand, we have very high brand awareness. We're very fortunate to have a brand that's truly, you say CoverGirl to any American and they know the brand, they have a certain idea of the brand. And you're right, it has a place with McDonald's, with Coke, with other beautiful brands with long histories in the market. And so we have a responsibility to deliver to consumers what they expect. And as I mentioned, we're easy, breezy, beautiful. That's been the tagline for a long time in the brand. And it's something that we recently came back to because we realized there was recognition, there was an iconic equity for that tagline that was meaningful to consumers. And so it's both a pleasure and an honor, but also a responsibility to make sure that we are actually doing what we can to make shopping for makeup easy, breezy, and beautiful. Again, because the category is complicated. There's a lot of selecting and deselecting that happens in the aisle, but we look at every detail, whether it's the types of fixtures, graphics, wording, the balance between how much wording we offer versus things that we could show via product or via model images. We look at that in individual pieces. We look at it together in terms of how it all comes together in the in-store environment.
Great.
And that really kind of gets me to one of the third pieces on that relates back to racing a car, which is that you need to position yourself for success. Everyone, obviously there's a draw to decide how the starting positions are during a race, but at any point during a race, whether it's car racing or bike racing or any other kind of race, it's so important to make sure that at any point you're thinking strategically about how you position ourselves. And so for us, whether it's the CoverGirl business or anything else in the portfolio, we're always looking at KPIs at given points in time that bringing them together will help us understand, are we successful? So some of the ones that we look at as brands would in any category are market share and household penetration, but it's also balancing our internal KPIs like top line revenue and operating income, and making sure that our KPIs are going across all of our stakeholders, whether those stakeholders are consumers and our retail partners, but also our investors and shareholders, because ultimately at the end of the day, we're also delivering a number to the company on a quarterly basis, quarterly, semi-annual, and annual basis. And so part of kind of being positioned for success is always looking around and making sure we have our eyes on all those measures.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So when you're driving a car and you see all the different KPIs, now I'm going to look at the gas as a KPI. You need to follow that in order to keep going the road, right? So it makes a lot of sense because nowadays you need to measure what is success for each brand. It may be that you are the smallest brand in the portfolio of a consumer brand, small company, or you can be like you, the leader of a well-known top 5 brand in the industry. So yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense. So then you were talking about the communication that you had with your audience. I wanted to ask, this now generation, the one that is constantly looking for instant gratification, and then next within one app, and then goes again to the other app, and then it just, now consumers, we don't want to get bored. We want to be entertained all the time, right? So in a platform like TikTok, that is, you're just like video, boom, oh no, this is not interesting. How does that organic content work, and how do you make it work for CoverGirl?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something where it's always important to be aware of our brand strengths and ongoing opportunity areas. And so we have a multi-pronged strategy with TikTok. And I think one of the things that we've been very open to, and TikTok has really opened our eyes to, because of how much the algorithm favors creators and how much discoverability is really inherent to TikTok, is that we've seen, in particular, CoverGirl talked about in new ways that we hadn't necessarily even imagined. So for example, we have Simply Ageless, which is one of our core franchises on CoverGirl. It's in the category, it's the #1 anti-aging foundation. So very important role in the category. But traditionally, you might think of an anti-aging foundation as a brand that maybe you would start thinking about maybe in your mid-30s, maybe around that 40th birthday. But actually last year, late last year, we saw that a young influencer who was truly young, 19 years old, actually works as a beauty advisor, discovered one of our products, our Wrinkle Defy foundation by Simply Ageless. And she did a dupe comparing our $13 Wrinkle Defy foundation versus a $40 prestige foundation. And she did kind of your very typical side-by-side comparison that you're seeing on TikTok. And obviously, as I mentioned, as things happen with TikTok, the algorithm really picked it up because of how much consumers were engaging. And, even though, yes, it's just a quick swipe, if someone spends an extra 3 seconds on that swipe because the content is compelling and the content is engaging as it was when she presented it, TikTok then really amplifies it across its platform. And we partnered with her to kind of continue to drive that message. But my point is that really it's, whether it's thinking about kind of racing a car and understanding where you might have an additional opportunity that leverages a strength. In our case, this is an amazing product. It was actually developed from technology that originally came from Japanese beauty products that then came into CoverGirl. And so we knew that it was always a great product, and our core consumer has known this for a long time. But to actually see someone who's 19 that also appreciates these good for you benefits, the hyaluronic acid, not to mention the performance benefits, versus much more expensive product, and kind of talking about it in her own way was something that delighted us, and we really ran with it because it showed us how a new consumer could leverage a strength in our portfolio that that we knew was exciting and we knew was a great product, but allowed us to talk and kind of gave us permission to really talk to more younger consumers about a product that had been maybe originally conceived more for an aging or anti-aging consumer.
Yeah, and now that you were talking about the TikTok option and the influencer, the micro influencers, and the impact that it's having in the market, not only for small brands but also big brands like you. I mean, the other day I was talking to somebody in the beer industry, and the craft beer has really hit the big guys. Is this something that has hit your industry? So, the smaller, regional crafty, if you want to call it, cosmetic brands, has that been some kind of a hit to the brand? And how do you take a look at what others are doing and keeping at the top of your game?
Yeah, I would say overall in cosmetics in particular, but across beauty, innovation is super important for consumers, and we see consumers gravitating towards innovation wherever it comes from. And in our case, for example, when we've launched Clean Fresh Foundation a couple of years ago, we launched it obviously unbeknownst to us right as the pandemic was hitting. It still ended up being one of the top launches in the beauty space in spring of 2020. It was a foundation that was very forgiving for younger skin. Typically, consumers who are younger want something more sheer in their foundation, almost like a BB or a CC cream. And it was a vegan product and had no talc and a lot of other things that consumers looked for that really propelled it to be one of the top launches. And I think that for me, it's not so much about, is there an indie brand per se, or is there something that consumers are looking for? It's that they're looking for inspiration and they're looking for things that are relevant to them. And we've seen with our success on the Clean Fresh lineup, which has continued to build out products since spring 2020, that we're continuing. Most recently, we've launched lip balms under Clean Fresh, which have already become a top 10 lip balm in just a few months in the market. And so for me, it's about really understanding what the consumer cares about in terms of product benefits, ingredients, or in some cases, lack of ingredients. Again, there's some really important hot buttons that consumers look for in terms of things that are excluded in the formulas nowadays. And we've seen success even with consumers across age groups, but in particular with younger consumers when we're really listening. So for me, it's less about indie brands per se. I don't know as much, I don't work in the beverage industry, so I know less about what's driving indie beer brands, but in makeup and in beauty in general, it's very much around benefit spaces and ingredients. And we see when we are delving into them, whether it's with CoverGirl, Clean Fresh, or Lash Blast Clean, or Sally Hansen, Good Kind Pure, which is a 16-free vegan nail polish, we see success with consumers who are more ingredient aware and more focused on these trends.
Yeah, and that again is one of the 10 points of your marketing points that resonates with driving a car, right? So listening to inputs of noises in the car, it's looking what's out there in the market and reacting to that, right?
Absolutely. It's part of, one of the points that I had, which is also to practice and simulate before it's the real thing. So it's doing the social listening, it's doing the consumer research to understand where are the social conversations, where are the real conversations. I mean, it can be anywhere from things that are out there publicly. I mean, going into spending an hour reading reading the forums on Reddit is incredibly helpful, as is the amount of custom research and things that we do to prepare for launches. So it's understanding, like in a race, what are the capabilities of your vehicle? How does it respond in wet weather, dry weather, et cetera? And that's how you really kind of future proof your brand and your reaction, or in your case, or in my case, if you're driving the car, what it looks like in that segment ahead. And so that's something that's really important for us, because when you're practicing and simulating, it also leads me to kind of the next point, which is understanding how your tools work, right? So if you haven't simulated, if you haven't done the research to know what's out there and what are the potential opportunities where you can accelerate in a straightaway, or somewhere that you may need to slow down and listen a bit more, because again, there could be a wet or a slick road ahead. That's where it really all comes together. So for us, it's making sure we understand how our tools work. Another thing that we had done when we saw all the transitions in consumer behavior during the pandemic is we really leaned forward with fast delivery. And so you'll see, for example, you can get our products not just in traditional e-commerce, but also in platforms like GoPuff that are delivering in less than half an hour across cities in the US, and really delivering that impulsivity that consumers have for beauty products. So for us, it was understanding, okay, if consumers are physically in stores less, how do we still deliver on, wow, that's such a cool nail color, or wow, I want to try that mascara now. The closest thing was really fast delivery. And so it's really, like I said, kind of understanding where are the need gaps for the consumer, where are her needs still not being met. And in this example, it's not just about the product or about the messaging, but how do we get it, right? I think the best example from any product, any category is really Coke, right? They always say the product should always be at an arm's length from every consumer. So, that's something that, again, whether it's simulating as you drive and understanding how do you always have a maneuver up your sleeve that if something happens, you know how to react, you know how to make it happen. For us, this was really about a distribution play where more and more consumers wanted something, even when it was kind of at the click of a finger, that would come within 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's impressive how things can change right away when you're driving a car, and also happens in the market. I mean, nobody knew we were going to go into 2-year pandemic, right? Nobody knew that you were going to double or triple down your investment in e-commerce, or you will be delivering cosmetics into the homes of everybody. So that's pure reaction right there. So yeah, it's amazing. And the toll is taking on the market right now, because what I see is that all these different generations, they're confused of how we're going to return to the new normal. What's going to be the new normal? Do you guys have like a plan or a sketch of how it's going to be? Are you doubling down on point of sale, or are you gonna just keep the efforts of what you're doing right now? What's it like for your brands?
Yeah, those are great questions. I mean, part of knowing our tools available and making sure that we're tracking with consumer sentiment is the way that we maintain leadership and have even grown our market share, as we've been kind of in the last 6 months starting to ease up in some areas on the pandemic. It's a combination of factors of everything that drives the business. It kind of goes back to our KPIs earlier, and really making sure that we have a broad view of what's working. So for me, it's not about necessarily abandoning an entire strategy that we had before, and totally immersing into a different strategy, but understanding, again, what are the tools that we have available. And so it's, kind of goes back to a couple more of the racing principles that I had, which is, one is to, listen to inputs from the car and the cars around you, so you can always optimize your position, right? So for us, it was looking at what are the KPIs that are changing as a result of the pandemic? What are the KPIs that don't seem to be changing? Is it KPIs only around distribution, or is it also around sentiment? And we saw there were changes in both. And again, what within the realm of our control can we act on quickly to change without necessarily changing everything, which is kind of a nice flow into the eighth principle that I had, which is that extreme maneuvers can make it harder to get back in course and but back on course of the brand. And one of the things, and I've been through quite a few major brand restages in my career, or have come on to brands that have restages, and a lot of brands change too many things during a restage. I've seen the best brand restages really be evolutionary rather than revolutionary. We saw in prior to my time on the business in 2018, CoverGirl changed a lot of its elements, including Viz ID and packaging and things. And so with our current kind of refresh of CoverGirl, which is really starting to come to life in store with this spring, and earlier with our advertising, is that it's a new Viz ID, but at the same time, it's actually a Viz ID that's leveraging the things that worked from the brand before. So it's bringing back outdoor semiotics to the brand. It's bringing back sunlight, which really communicates that uplifting power of makeup. And that's really what we bring to the category. We are the light in terms of, in some ways literal, but really also metaphorical. We are the light that we bring to the category for the consumer. And so we're bringing back these elements that were originally part of the CoverGirl DNA from the 1960s through the 1980s. And that's where we're really seeing a lot of success in the current brand positioning. So it might look very different compared to the 2018 restage, but as we talked earlier, as you mentioned, the brand has a place in the mind of every American consumer, and there's associations with that were earned over decades. And so for us, the latest positioning and expression of CoverGirl is really paying homage to what brought us to where we were, and then and we've seen it's continuing to accelerate our share and our results as a result of coming back to something that was really authentic and kind of getting out of those extreme maneuvers. It's rare that a brand that has decades of staying power truly has everything wrong with it. Just the same way that when you're in a race, or you're driving a vehicle at high speeds, it's rare that everything is going wrong, but it's making sure that if you hear something or you feel something twitch, that it doesn't become a reaction that leads to oversteer or understeer, which can make you spin out and kind of lose the business. Something that feels a little off, if responded to calmly and kind of evaluated and focusing on where is it coming from, still has to be done quickly, is a much easier way to get back on the course.
Yeah. It's interesting. When you piece everything together, I mean, unfortunately we don't have the time to go step by step through all your 10 steps, right? But we have touched, if not all, most of them, right? And see how the brand can follow a marketing plan that can be that can have a little bit more chances to be successful, right? So if you would like to say, okay, let me give just a takeaway for everybody that is listening and that has listened to the podcast, what would that be, Kevin?
Yeah, I would say probably the last one. We did hit 8 out of the 10, so we're going to hit 9 with my last one here.
Yes.
For me, it's really about putting it all together, because at the end of the day, whether it's driving a car, whether it's dancing, whether it's running a business, at the end of the day, everything comes together in one continuous dance. And I think that the maybe for some, the challenge of either marketing or the challenge of driving the business is that you have to be comfortable knowing that there are some elements of the left brain that are intangible and immeasurable. But if you've done something enough and you understand the key drivers, you can sense if something is off. But at the same time, there are core measures, KPIs, there's data that will tell you that something's off. The challenge is a lot of times when by the time you have something showing up in it as a confirmed challenge in terms of KPIs, it might be too late. So that's where the balance between kind of having a feeling and having an intuition from knowing how the car runs, knowing how the business behaves, will give you the leg up. So it's really about kind of understanding everything together and having the confidence to sense challenges, to sense changes ahead, and to make pivots early before kind of, waiting months, weeks until you have the confirmation that it's happening. Sometimes by the time you have the confirmation that's happening, the damage can be a lot bigger than if you are able to kind of participate holistically in the dance.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you need to, as a brand manager or a brand responsible of a business, you need to really get everything together and just drive slowly but surely and be confident of what you have, right? So that is the importance of this 10. The one that we missed out is dialing it in, right? Knowing when to
Yes.
let it out, the clutch. Do you want to just give us that last push so we can have it all in the podcast recorded?
Sure, I would love to. For me, this is really coming back to TikTok and the phenomenon of how quickly things can come and go in TikTok. So I mentioned that we've had some very early success with our new CoverGirl Clean Fresh lip balms, which are beautiful, clean beauty, vegan formulas. So similar to our Simply Ageless phenomenon, we had a specific view around what we were designing the lip balm for, which is, again, vegan, cruelty-free like the rest of CoverGirl, clean beauty. But some influencers on TikTok realized that actually the performance, the results of our color payoff are very similar to a $20 prestige lip product. And
No.
so again, with the dupe strategy, why spend 20 when you can get something for $6.99 at a store near you is something that we've leaned into. But with the way TikTok moves so quickly, it's very similar to the clutch on a race car, which is much more unforgiving than a typical road vehicle. There's a very specific engagement point. It only engages with the gas. Unlike, again, a road vehicle, you can engage the clutch on its own to get the car kind of slowly moving, but having the confidence to also put the gas and go. So for us, that was about, always having our eye on TikTok, ready to let out the clutch if we see something that is interesting, relevant, even if it's not something that's part of an activation plan, but dovetails consistently or provides a new angle to something that we're supporting and we see success with. And so for me, that's another one where, again, it's just always being ready to go, because windows of opportunity now more than ever open and close, and it can be in a week's time. So, we don't work in days, we work in hours when it comes to opportunities that we see on social. And so for me, this is very much similar to always being in tune with how the clutch works and knowing that exact second to let something rip.
Yeah, great insight. And I wanted to ask, Kevin, if it's okay with you, because maybe some of the audience are like, rewinding and playing, and what's first, what's second. Is it possible that we could get a version from 1 to 10 without all the confidential information, for sure? And if somebody would like, they can just email me and I can send them to them without any issues. Would that be okay with you?
Absolutely.
Perfect. I will share with you to make sure that we're clear to send it. And yeah, because right now, I'm telling you, this is pure gold. This is what the best of the best are using to keep the brands at the top of its game. So yeah, thank you for that insight. Before leaving us, I would like to go into the fun final segment of the podcast and see what is a great brand manager like you has as a top one brand in the breakfast category. What would
in the which category?
The breakfast. So breakfast. Top brand.
Gosh, Cheerios. I can't even think of another brand.
Cheerios. That would be
Cheerios.
your like brand that you would have and enjoy. Do you consume the product, or you just enjoy the whole brand approach?
I consumed probably tons of Cheerios in my life. I've had to change my diet with age. So
okay. Don't
So
we
I do
all?
not currently consume Cheerios, but the the brand is, I trust the brand. It's healthy. There's so many things that I remember about it, whether it's the distinctive assets of the yellow box, the product itself, but also the health benefits. I remember that they had done heart disease
The cholesterol,
health
right? Yeah.
study, exactly, cholesterol. So for me, like as a breakfast cereal, when you think about starting your day off right and healthy, and as you can probably tell, I have so much passion for brands that are easy breezy, like CoverGirl. To me, Cheerios makes breakfast easy breezy. I don't have to think too much about nutrition or too much about anything artificial or not wanted. So for me, like the brand really hits the bullseye of what I would want to put into my body during breakfast,
Great.
breakfast time.
Great, great. Thank you for sharing that because I mean, typically this question like offsets you and takes you into a different category as a consumer in the other side, right? So it's interesting how the director of a brand now evaluates another brand in a different category. There's non-competitive. So thank you
Yeah,
for that. Where can the audience reach you and learn more about you, Kevin?
they're always welcome to find me on LinkedIn, send me a message. If they're friends of yours, you have my email, you're welcome to connect me with them. If it's anyone specific from your clients or your friends, feel free.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I will do that. Thank you so much, Kevin. Well, we've been talking to Kevin Shapiro, Senior Vice President of US Marketing of Consumer Beauty at Coty. Thank you, Kevin, again for your time. And for the audience, do not forget to tune in the next episode of the Now Generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francisco.